Welcome to the Acquisition HQ podcast, where we interview seasoned operators of companies anywhere between 2 to 50 million in EBITDA, as well as industries that are private equity, VC, and people that are looking to deploy capital. We also have M&A service providers that we do interview and will provide you with strategy and all the information that a deal maker or someone who's buying a company would need to learn. Thank you so much for joining us, Sean. Today, we are joined here with Sean Zacot. He is a seasoned entrepreneur with over 3 decades of experience in warehousing, distribution, and global logistics. As the founder and CEO of Boss Strategies Global Inc., he has established himself as a key player in international trade, supply chain management, and strategic brand representation. His career trajectory, marked by innovation, resilience, and strategic expansion, has transformed his initial venture, Boss Strategies LLC DBA, the trucking boss, into a globally recognized 3PL provider with a strong emphasis on global sourcing and relationship-driven logistics solutions. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Nate. Appreciate it.
Well, I've talked to you in extensive detail around how you've structured the company, where you're currently at, and where you're going. But I'd like to learn a little bit more about that entrepreneurial journey and how you got the bug.
It started years ago, fresh out of the military, just shy of 21. I drove a tank and I wasn't sure what direction to go. So I went and got my CDL and got into trucking. I enjoyed traveling. So actually got into moving furniture, what they called bed bugging, and bought my first truck at 23. Through United Van Lines in Savage, Maryland, and got the bug. Being an owner and having your own fate in your hand and the ability to create your own future and drive revenue based on how hard you work drove me from buying one truck to a second truck to a third truck. And then it just launched the domestic trucking career, basically is where it began.
It's interesting. I've seen entrepreneurs, they'll do the one truck and they'll just keep on driving, and they really don't have any aspirations for a multitude of trucks, right? Or to manage the business. Where do you think that came into play with you?
I think one of the biggest successes, one thing that I enjoy, which is a passion of mine, is teaching and helping others. So what ended up happening was bringing other drivers on that wanted to learn how to get their own operating authority through the DOT and the FMCSA and understanding the business side of trucking. So my first year in trucking, realizing that I probably had a $12,000 tax bill and spent $50,000 in diesel fuel, I quickly learned this is not just a hobby. This is like you need to learn and understand it. So I developed, and later on, we'll get to that, but that's where I developed the trucking boss, or the whole boss analogy, which was business, operations, safety, and success. And it was to teach owner-operators the business. So once I got that bug, it just kind of led next step, to where I would then mentor owner-operators and bring them on under my authority and my fleet and my guidance, teach them the business, then help them get their own operating authority.
Constantly creating solutions for people's problems and then just seeing it, from an angle that's a little bit different than the average, as opposed to one who just is in a system and just continues to follow that system. That's one thing I've noticed about you is your ability to, one, be relational in your approach, but then also, two, your patience and understanding with people, and then also just being able to, like you said, structure out a kind of an instruction manual and standard operating procedures. I mean, you have a very organizational kind of operational mindset. So how has that played a major role and factor into the current logistics company you run?
So if you look at what I did with the transportation side, growing owner-operators in the business and mentoring people, once I had the opportunity to dabble in global logistics a little bit back in 2015, still managing trucking companies and owner-operators throughout my business, when I had an opportunity to grow on the global scale, the same opportunity with independent owner-operators that need to learn the business, I converted that to brands that want to come to the U.S. and understand how to launch their brand into the U.S. So basically, I did the same exact strategy for trucking and just implemented that into another problem to solve, which was when brands want to come to the United States, in their home country, it's challenging to, one, create your own entity here in business for a foreign company. Two, they could sell to a distributor and then they basically wash their hands of it. So then they don't know where their brand's going, where it's being sold, what they're doing. Or three, what Boss Strategy Global does is we partner with the brand and we bring them to the United States at a very small scale of what they can afford in their budget to launch, just like an entrepreneur. So you got to look at it as a startup. They might be doing $5 million in Europe, but they don't really have the capital to invest in the US. So we treat them like a startup. We bring them here to small scale. We introduce them to our network of retailers or sales. We help with warehousing distribution. We give them the entire model all the way across. And then that's how they grow. They start out here with one pallet, two pallets of product until they grow to 5 containers a month. And then they're well established.
Interesting that you've said that. And what I've noticed before is, there's progressions in the growth and development of a company. What was your single source of revenue when you first began? And then how has it, continually progressed now into multiple sources of revenue?
In the global side or just all across?
All across. But of course, share with us first with the global logistics, and then also maybe define that a little bit as well for those out there that aren't familiar with the entire logistics scene.
So the global logistics side, really the revenue is driven by service. You can basically just consider it a service-based business. There are services that we provide, there are services that we farm out and then manage on behalf of the brand or the customer. So you have a service side that drives revenue. Then you have obviously a sales side that drives revenue. So one of the challenges also with global brands, getting yourself established here, is you have to have product liability insurance, you got to establish yourself in the US. So we have the agreements to where we manage the brands for exclusivity for a certain period of time. And Boss Strategy Global takes ownership of the product. So we are the ones that are actually handling the sale, the final sale to any of the large retailers that we work with. We hold the contracts with the large retailers, the product liability insurance with the retailers. So we are basically compensated to manage that all the way through the process.
So you started to add these various revenue streams inside of your umbrella company, right?
Yeah.
And you're seeing some significant growth, Yeah. And I think that's one thing we'll touch on here is really the strategy of how you've wanted to grow, and then also how you will grow in the future, which we cannot tell the exact future, but we know the future is bright with what it is you're doing. So share with us a little bit more about, your strategy of growing this portfolio now, and then now how are you starting to branch out and grow that portfolio?
Yeah, so we had an opportunity in 2024. We saw some of our successes are following trends in Europe, which typically happen 6 months before they're trending in the US. So we saw an opportunity with the Dubai chocolate market that was trending in Europe. We shared that with some of our buyers in the US. They were very interested. So we branded, we built the portfolio around what their request was, which is something we do for innovation. And we're very quick to market. So we have speed to market as one of our successes. So we built the portfolio for a particular retailer, and they dabbled in the market for a month or two, and it exploded. It just went off the hook. Everybody, I'm sure, is aware of the Dubai chocolate trend. Then we saw that, and we realized that we can focus on other trending items that come into the US and get to the market before everybody else gets to the market.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before. Dubai chocolate. I'm surprised you didn't bring any by today.
Oh.
No, but no, that's a huge opportunity, and I think that what you said is something that those out there should grasp, and that is to speed to market. With anything and any entrepreneur, if you're going to just sit back and let others take market share, that's not going to grow anything. And that's one thing that I've seen about you is you just take action.
So that is one thing. Life rewards action, not knowledge. It's simple. You have to have the knowledge, but if you do nothing with it, you get nothing out of it.
Yeah,
personally. Absolutely.
Well, as you've continued to grow this portfolio and then be able to continually help build brands and distribute brands across a multitude of industries, in regards to the food industry, you have recently just made another acquisition. So I want to talk a little bit more about this acquisition. Let's dissect this as a case study a little bit, as whatever you'd like to speak about in depth. But yeah, share with us a little bit more about this potential, or not potential, it's already closed.
Yeah.
And then what you're going to do with it.
Yeah, so it's actually our first acquisition.
Okay.
Pop Art Snacks, based out of Utah here. There was an opportunity. They were interested in partnering. I guess if I start from the very beginning, let me back up and start from the beginning. They were looking for someone to help drive sales, innovation, and some opportunities. So when I first was introduced and met with them, I actually gave them a proposal for Ball Strategy Global to come in and put the steps together necessary over an 18-month period to scale their brand, warehousing, distribution, innovation, everything, introduce them to our buyers, to our network and retail, and then manage that. They had a challenge with that financially, to bring someone on. They didn't have an issue with the equity side. The challenge was the ability to produce the product because of funds, which is one of the issues with small businesses, right? Mm-hmm. Is capital to grow. You can outgrow your capital. So the conversation actually kind of dwindled, and I moved on. Like, I didn't think anything else of it. And then we were approached again by Pop Art Snacks for an acquisition of assets only. So then it was an opportunity to purchase the company without the debt of the company and everything else, and just purchase the asset side. So then we started to review that. We started to look that over with our board of advisors, with our legal counsel, and we saw the opportunity to purchase the assets, relaunch the brand, and begin selling vertically right into our platform in our network.
The way that you've done this is, I think it's brilliant, is you've got distribution closed, or you've got a trump card on distribution. And then now you've got a product that you can immediately plug into your already existing distribution, based on your buyers and based on your experience there. What other areas do you think that you'll be able to take this company? Have you kind of conceptualized the future, and what gets you excited about it?
Yeah, so there is some excitement, not only with the 3 SKUs that we're going to launch. We're not going to relaunch all of the SKUs of Pop Art, but we are going to relaunch at least 3 SKUs, which are popular SKUs. But what gets me excited is a global scale. So I do importing. The opportunity here is the last 4 months of the year, I traveled everywhere from Istanbul to Dubai to Germany to Italy and everywhere in between, and started pitching the idea of selling popcorn overseas in Europe. And I have a lot of interest. So what excites me about this project is not only relaunching in the US, but the opportunity to take our US product and brand to the European market.
What are you seeing about international markets, right? Because I see that, a lot of people just think that they've got US, and they probably they don't even know how to do business in other cities and other countries, for that matter. What are you seeing there, and how would you navigate some of those complexities?
Yeah, so there are a lot of challenges when it comes to Europe. You have certain food regulations you have to follow that we don't necessarily follow here. I think some of that is changing with the new administration. Well, I guess not new administration, but with RFK in there, focused more on health. So we see some opportunities there. A lot of stuff that we produce in Europe already meets those standards. So we're ahead of the curve here compared to U.S. businesses that produce here in the U.S. So as they're starting to transition their products to potentially be compliant on some of these changes, we're already in the market for that because we already sell product to Europe. Another thing is, even though we scaled from 24 to 25, we still don't have a lot of red tape as we grow. So we can move quickly, again, speed to market, we can innovate, we can adjust and adapt fast, to where you have larger companies, maybe like a Hershey, that takes a lot longer time to get through all the red tape of the corporate side before they start making certain changes. So we can move a little bit quicker in that market. When it comes to, obviously, the trending side, we see what's going on in Europe that bleeds over here, and about 6 months later that we can capitalize on. And then understanding different taste profiles. Europeans have a different taste profile than Americans. Mexico, it's a different taste profile. And depending on the buyer of the retailer, what the buyer is looking for, which means you need to go to a certain region if you're looking for maybe a Hispanic taste profile or a Cuban profile. And you have to make sure it's also marketable here in the U.S. And not just a niche market like in the ethnic market, they would call it.
That's good. I was thinking about how you went through this process of your acquisition and some of the difficulties. Were there any difficulties or any type of not hurdles per se that you had to overcome through that process that you would suggest somebody else to do prior?
I mean, I think it went fairly smooth. It was just a small team of us looking it over. I think because it was an asset purchase, it's a little bit different than buying a company that could be in debt. There's really everything's, I guess it would be considered a non-tangible IPs and everything. Although we did get some tangible assets like some film or some boxes or trade show booths, but on a small scale. So it wasn't really like a corporate acquisition where you have equipment involved or debt lines and different things like that. We're just getting the assets. So I don't think it was as
You
complicated.
structured this specific acquisition without doing any loans.
It was no loans. Didn't have to go to the bank. We did the budget on the internal side and just paid cash.
Yeah.
For the acquisition.
How did you initially come up with the valuation?
So there was an initial valuation proposed to us by the sellers.
Okay, got it. So they
Right?
had
So
their
they sent
number.
that over. And then we did an evaluation on our side. We did some research. We had our board advisors obviously review things, look things over, and give their input. And then we reevaluated what we came up with. And it was more of just a negotiation.
Yeah.
This is where we see the value of the product, what we can do with it, how it's a value to us, items on the list that aren't a value to us. So if you want to get rid of them, we'll take them, but they're not really a value, but we could use them, but we didn't want to pay for them.
I know something you've talked about prior was, and we know this to be true in any acquisition, is structuring out the earnout and also, strategically negotiating that term sheet that can be both beneficial to the acquiring company as well as to the seller. Is there something you can share about how you structured that earnout?
As far as for the
Like high level, how did you structure that?
for the sellers.
Yeah, for the sellers.
So the sellers
That also benefited you as well.
Yeah. So the sellers were obviously interested in making some,
Yeah.
capital off of it as well. I mean, it's something they built, but they're also very important and very strategic part of the team.
True.
You can't just purchase either a company or an asset and then wash your hands and they walk away. So we did negotiate an 8-month. I can release that much, at least an 8-month
Yep.
contract, I guess you could say, obligation to Ball Strategy Global. So they're contracted to us for at least 8 months to help with not only the transition of certain things, even from these are little things, even from trademarks to moving the email addresses over, moving websites over. It's like little tedious things that need to be done that they're aware of. Introducing us to co-manufacturers, to the company that makes their film or that designs their plates. Also, their current sales. We took over some of their current sales right away that are being shipped up to Canada. So they're handling a lot of that transitional part. And then the length of time was added on because we are considering launching additional SKUs that we didn't want to launch right away. So they will be part of that transition as well to launch the additional SKUs that you really can't do up front. You need to give it some time to get the ball
and they
rolling.
know the business, and they've got to be. You've got to have somebody in position that knows everything, the ins and outs of it, before you just come in and because again, you're trying to create a sustainable, long-term play here with both Pop Art Snacks as well as all the other brands that you're representing. As far as you being the holdco and then having a multitude of brands underneath there, it's exciting times for you. That's for sure.
It's definitely exciting. We've grown.
What are some of the things that you've learned through this process that you'd want to share with others? Not just the acquisition process, but also the scaling of a company, and then ways that you could become better or also share with others.
So I think one of our greatest successes during the scaling of the company that I would recommend other people to look at is surround yourself with a team that understands and that can help out. So there was a slight struggle as we started to scale so quickly from 2024 to 2025. It was just shy of 10x of what we did. Funding became challenging, financing, product became challenging. So what I ended up doing was building a board of advisors, bringing people onto the company, not really requesting capital, although capital is helpful, but bringing them on with their knowledge and giving them like advisory shares into the company to help you scale. So somebody that has the background in financials, somebody that understands maybe from the tax side, like a CPA. One of our board advisors spent almost 30 years at Hershey. So he understands the confectionery side and getting into certain retailers and understanding promotional markets, promotional calendars, and different things that we typically didn't do, right? So I would say, surrounding yourself with the right team and giving them an opportunity to come in and let them excel at what they do and help you get where you have to go.
Well, you hear it here from Sean, and you've built an amazing company so far. You went from 10. You said 10x basically.
Just shy of 10x, yeah. Just shy of 10x from 1 year to the next.
1 year.
Yeah.
Well, again, we're here to support you on your next year in your next 10x endeavor. Here at the podcast, but also with our network. And we just want to say again, thank you for being a part as a founding member of the Acquisition HQ Network, as well as one who's been, significantly influential and impactful for providing a value to both the sponsorship of our upcoming conference, which we're excited about, Acquisition Conference, coming to Salt Lake City, March 2026, 5th and 6th. And, if you guys want to learn more about Here's Sean, how do we get a hold of you?
I'm big on LinkedIn. Pop Art may be big on some other social media outlets here soon. But I can be reached on LinkedIn. It's just Sean Zacot. There's two of us, my son and myself. So you'll be able to see the difference.
Well, if you're looking to distribute or create any brands from overseas over to the U.S., this is your guy. Boss Strategies Global is going to be, again, it's a household name. You know what I mean? With a lot of brands, a lot of opportunity for you out there that are wanting to distribute product, of course, and they've got buyers that are lined up, Walmart, big box retail, and it's pretty cool. So again, thank you so much for listening in. Hope you guys grabbed a few nuggets in regards to, logistics, about a kind of a growing company and what to do and what not to do. But thank you so much. And if you guys want to check out the Acquisition HQ Network, make sure to go to acquisitionhq.co to learn more about the councils that'll be releasing this year, as well as the conference and also the private network. So until next time, we look forward to shooting a new podcast for you, and we'll see you again soon.